Welcome to Perry's Victory, an International Peace Memorial. My name's Wesley Harrison. I'm one of the original builders of the monument. They've asked me to come back today to give you a little tour, talk a little about my experiences building the memorial behind me. All 352-foot granite stone behind me. I'm dressed pretty much the way I dressed when I was working on site here. Just a pair of denim overalls, a flannel plaid shirt, and just this nice soft cap. No hard hats back in those days. How did I get involved in this project? Well, I was looking through the Toledo Blade one day and saw an advertisement looking for workers. They were looking for general laborers, masons, carpenters. So I wrote to the Robinson Company. They sent back some information of the project. Sounded like this great project, and I needed a job, so I got on a boat, paid my 50 cents, rode the boat here to the dock in the harbor, got off the boat, and I was a little confused. The information I'd received sounded like this was this grand thing they were building here, and I just assumed there'd be signs, something to point, there'd be something to direct me in the right direction. This is probably April of 1913. I get off the boat and I'm walking on the dock. I run into a guy doing some work. He goes, "Hey, where's this Perry's monument being built?" And he points over in this general direction. I start walking down the dirt road, and as I'm getting closer, I'm wondering, what did I get myself into? It was swampy. It looked like a tornado had gone through a swamp. How could this be the site of a great memorial? Well, as I got closer, I noticed some guys working, and I decided, you know what? I paid my 50 cents to ride the boat out here. I might as well stay and see what I can do, see what it's really about. Within about 20 minutes of being on island, I had a shovel in my hand. I was moving stone. And they poured the foundation before I got here that winter. And so now they're getting ready to place the blocks. There's a 600-foot rail dock out into the bay here where they were unloading stones, and we were stacking them up at the base of the memorial. And we started laying stones. But we couldn't get too far. We only had about a row or two of stones by July. And the reason is, on July 4th, 1913, they had a cornerstone ceremony. The Masons are here doing all their special rituals for laying the cornerstone. Webster Huntington, who was one of the guys that was the ringleaders of organizing, building this memorial, was here, and they placed a lockbox in the cornerstone. All sorts of rumors of what was going on, or what was going in that lockbox. Talks of secret Masonic documents, newspapers. Webster Huntington was a newspaper man, so I wonder if he put his newspaper in. All sorts of things like that were supposedly put in it. Everyone and their brother, there was no stands or no nice seating. Everyone just sort of stood on the granite blocks all around watching the ceremony. Well, after everyone left, we got to go back to work. And that first phase of building was one of the slowest phases of building the memorial, because down at the bottom, those granite blocks are 5 tons each. The walls there, from the outside to the inside of the rotunda, are 10 foot, which doesn't seem that bad. But in that 10 foot, you have the granite, you have concrete, and then you have limestone to line the inside of the rotunda. And to add to it, we built a curved staircase inside that wall. The rotunda has a domed ceiling, so all this took time. It's September now, 1913. Another sort of break in our work out here, and it's the centennial of the battle. Everyone was coming out for this event. You had President Taft. Woodrow Wilson's now president, but Taft was the one that was involved giving money to the project, so he came out for the dedication of the monument. they had the U.S. Wolverine, the only U.S. warship on Lake Erie that towed the U.S. brig Niagara. They'd raised her in Erie, Pennsylvania, and were towing her around the lake that summer, and they brought her here for the centennial of the battle, the dedication of the monument. One of the biggest events of this couple days out here was the reinterment of the 6 officers killed in battle. They went and removed them from the village park, brought them along the road here, grand procession, and laid them to rest inside the rotunda, under the floor. Well, then most people packed up, got back on the boats, and some of the big celebrations actually took place in Sandusky, Ohio. Well, we went back to work. We started laying the stones up higher. Once we got above that rotunda area, we poured 4 columns about 12 to 16 inches thick that will run the whole length. We poured them in 20, 40-foot sections. We also poured in the staircase to go up, and also put the systems in for holding the elevator, which will go inside the square staircase once you got above the rotunda. We laid 2 rows of those granite blocks at a time, and then we pour concrete behind them. We found out if you put 3 or 4 of those rows, if you put the concrete behind it, the weight of the concrete would push the granite out of alignment. And every 4 rows we had to double check our measurement for the taper. It may look like it's a perfect taper going up there from bottom to top. However, it isn't. About halfway up, 2/3 of the way up, we bulged the column. You might wonder why, but it was explained to me that we're going to bulge it 4 inches. So it tapers, bulges out 4 inches, and then tapers again. The reason for this, if you had a perfect taper, it would look thinner in the middle with the sky behind it. So you bulge it. So then rather than looking smaller in the middle, it looks like a perfect taper. There are 3 patterns of stones. There's sort of a right stone, a left stone, and a center stone. And each layer has so many of them. And when you move up each layer or course of stone, you'd rotate that design just a little. So that way you never got a seam right on top of a vertical seam on top of a vertical seam. It would alternate. And as you get up there closer, you'll see it. Also, you'll notice that bulge I mentioned. It's hard to see it even when you walk up to it. You don't really see it swell out. But if you ever walk up to the memorial, look up. You might be able to see where it tapers back in. Also, you might notice some places a little more than others, the fluctuation of that as we adjusted and corrected the distance, the diameter of the memorial as we went up. People had asked me what kind of stones used in the monument. Well, it's a pink granite from Milford, Massachusetts. And what's interesting is the contractor, the Robinson Company, actually owned the quarry in Massachusetts too. So it's their quarry, they're cutting the stone in Massachusetts, crating it up, shipping it to Sandusky, and then barging it out here to the island. All these crates that these blocks are in are numbered. So literally, it is a jigsaw puzzle for us working out here. We'd look at it, know what row, what section it'd go, some fine-tune adjusting, because the front side was all carved already, the back side was left rough. And the reason it was left rough is they were all different sizes on the back. So as we stack these blocks and you poured the concrete behind it, it would interlock these stones together. Not much rebar in it. It is pretty much just granite stone And then where the forms are, it's a smooth concrete. And then we put a brick lining on the inside of the memorial to finish it off. The lower elevator landing had white subway tile placed in it with some green for trim. People ask about safety out here, and you can tell what they're really asking. They want to know, did we lose anyone on this project? We lost 2 people. One while I was out here working. No, he didn't fall. No 5-ton block fell on him. What happened? Well, that brick lining I mentioned, where you have the granite, the concrete, the brick lining. Well, they're laying that brick on the inside of the memorial, and one of those bricks fell and hit the guy in the head. When you're wearing a hat like this, or maybe a bolo hat like some of the guys wore out here, it's not going to stop a regular everyday brick. We stopped work for a while. There was an investigation. The island photographer came out, took pictures of the site, the work area, but eventually we went back to work. The other guy we lost on the project, it was after my time here. This was just shortly after I left. A piece of mortar, a small stone, hit him in the head. What's sad about this guy is he was on his way home. That was supposed to be his last day working on the memorial. I can just imagine, excited, he'd helped build this monument, and then he knows he's going home, see family, maybe friends, and he didn't leave the island the way he thought he was going to. Enough of that sad talk. We did have many close calls. We did have some chunks of stone, granite hit people in the head. It hurts, but nothing major other than those 2. One of the sort of funny stories, we had this small guy from Detroit. His nickname became he was known as Dynamite. And there was one day where it's either the end of the day or it's lunch or something. We're all getting ready to walk down the steps, but to get from that outside granite to the steps, we had 2x10 planks, 2 inches by 10 inches wide, 2 inches thick, the 15 feet or so from the granite to the staircase. Well, we're walking in, and then we look back, and there's a guy still on it, the plank. He's not just on it, he's on all 4s, gripping that plank with dear life. We look at each other, we can't leave this guy here. What are we gonna do? So Dynamite happened to be there. So we grab him, said, hey, you're a small guy, go out there, help him. I'm a big guy, I'm not going out there on a plank with somebody else. So Dynamite inches his way out to the guy, talks to him, inches him slowly. They're teetering out there on the plank. I don't think I ever saw a guy go down those steps as fast as he did once his foot hit that concrete. Another interesting story about that Dynamite guy is we had a 50-foot crane or so here on the ground at the base of the memorial. It did a good job of lifting stones till about where we got to the lower elevator landing. From then, I mentioned those pillars we poured of concrete around the elevator shaft, the stairway. Well, those pillars also served another purpose. They allowed us to attach a scaffolding, a boom system. So we basically made the monument its own crane, and it could hoist these stones up to the top. Well, there's this wedge-like device that go in, lock into the top of the stone so you can lift the stone up. And then when you lowered the stone into place and you relax it, took the tension off the cable for lifting, it'd relax and you could pull out that wedge out of the stone. Well, there was one stone that did not want to come free. And for some reason, we thought it'd be a good idea to send dynamite out to the end of the boom. He goes out there with a hammer, he starts hitting that stone, that wedge, and he finally gets it to drop free. Sure, he wasn't 352 feet up, but looking back, boy, that guy, Dynamite, now you know why he might have had that nickname. And then we could go back to work. People ask me about accommodations out here on the island. Where'd we stay? Where'd we live? What'd we do? Well, the job was kind of variable. When we had good weather, we got a rhythm going, we could work 10, 12 plus hour days out here. Other days, there just wasn't the work, so we didn't work as much. We worked through the winter. But during the summer, there's nicer weather out here. It isn't an island resort community. So some of us guys, younger guys, we just camped out at the site. Camped out at the base of the memorial. Problem was when it rained. Water would come, flood the grounds, and you had to make sure all your stuff was sort of anchored or tied down, or else it might float away. In the off season, the fall through the winter, we're not camping out here. It was a little easier to find some place in town to find accommodations. I'd like to thank you for listening to Wesley Harrison's story. I'm Ranger Rob, for one of the park rangers here at Perry's Victory and International Peace Memorial. And Wesley Harrison is actually a made-up figure. However, even though he's made up, his story is based on the real story. That dynamite guy is real. In the 1970s, park staff went and interviewed him. Some of the stories I told you today are dynamite stories. He talked about climbing out onto that plank, climbing out the end of the boom to knock that granite block free, get it to drop to the ground. The Toledo Blade story. Well, the guy who ran the hoist, the cranes, the electrical work, some of that stuff. He answered an ad in the Toledo Blade to come work out here. There are several islanders that came and worked on the monument. At any one time, there was 25 guys maybe that worked on this project for 32 months. Wesley Harrison isn't a real figure, but his story is based on the real stories of the men that built this memorial. Well, I'd like to thank you for coming on this journey for our virtual Perry Education Days. If you haven't, head over to our website, see the schedule, see what other programs we've posted this week. Thank you for using your